Hi, everyone. Here with me today is Jordan Strokovsky. And welcome, Jordan.
Hi, Courtney. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure and an honor. Today, I'm really excited because Jordan and I are going to dive into what it really takes to maintain wellness while running your own firm and carrying the emotional and mental weight of catastrophic injury cases and trials. Jordan's been in the thick of it, and yet he continues to make space for self care, values driven leadership, and showing up with integrity for his clients. So it's a real joy to have you here today. And just to give listeners a little bit of insight as to how we met, my first impression of you was wow, you're juggling a lot, and in the moment when I met you, you were all smiles. You were as kind as could be. And it was very clear to me that you highly value well roundedness. You work really hard at the work that you do, but you also value time for taking care of yourself. At the time, I was the co chair of what was known as the Wellness Committee for the Philadelphia Bar Association. And all throughout the time that I served in that position, we had various wellness offerings for the members of the Philadelphia Bar. And this particular time when I met you, it was a running event that I think you spearheaded for the Young Lawyers Division, perhaps. But at that time, you had already founded your law firm. And I just remember someone pointing you out to me and saying, yeah, he has his own firm. And here you were just in the midst of the busyness of what I presumed was your life. You were so upbeat and so instrumental in helping others to promote greater well-being. I'd love to hear more about how in all that you're doing now and handling catastrophic cases, and most recently becoming a dad, how you are able to own a business, handle emotionally charged cases, be a father, and yet still weave wellness into your busy life.
Well, thank you so much for that intro, Courtney. And also for what it's worth, I've always felt very highly of you and I've always been impressed from the jump of seeing a lawyer when we first met who also was very busy and was a litigator and who also though, I mean, way more than me was so present and so wellness and mindful. So again, I appreciate your kind words.
Thank
But
you. Thanks for the kind words about me.
sure. Oh, and just a quick thing about how when we first met, about how I got involved with running or organizing running groups, because this might be a good tidbit for maybe younger lawyers. When I was an associate, um, there was one lawyer I worked for that may not be considered the most wellness oriented person, to say the least. And it was a situation where it would be very difficult to leave the office at 8 o'clock at night. And that was very difficult for me because I was always a hard worker. I always loved what I did. I always wanted to succeed and get the best results. So to me, it always seemed kind of arbitrary to be forced into an office, let alone, past 8 o'clock at night every single day. I just never felt like that was sustainable or, working yourself into the ground is not actually great for the overall product
Yeah.
because you can't think, you can't sleep, you can't take care of yourself. But anyway, I was still a young associate, so what can I really do about it? And I really enjoyed running. Running was something before I, even went into law school. I realized was a key part of my life that really made me feel good. And that was something where no matter what happens in life, I always want to be able to exercise, be able to run because it just makes me feel good.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's good for my overall health. But anyway, so I'm like, wow, I'm stuck in the office, at least till 8 every single day. How am I gonna, get a run in or something like that?
And it's not
And
like I'm sure you weren't strolling into the office at like 10 or 11. You were
no, I'd
probably in
start at
7
like
or 8.
eight in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then on weekends, but that's a whole different podcast. But um I start thinking to myself, well, I kind of need an excuse to get out. So it's like, oh, you know what? Let me found this. Let me start this running group with the bar association, which is a justifiable excuse. You work for a firm, like, hey, can I leave at 6:30 on a Tuesday, meet with other lawyers and connect and network and get some exercise in the process. So I was allowed to do that and leave for that, and that actually ended up being a great thing. I met some friends and
Yeah.
one of which is one of my best friends, from that experience. And, I even, it wasn't for the purpose of generating business, but through some of those people I met, I'm still friends with them. And, over the years, I have received a few good cases,
Yeah.
from that network. But anyway, I guess the quick lesson I learned from that, for newer attorneys is one, don't always feel like the type of networking you have to do has to be, oh, let's go grab drinks and a steak. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but don't feel like you need to do that every single time, or
Yeah.
put yourself in a position where you're doing something that you don't actually enjoy doing. Like here, I enjoyed running,
Yeah.
so I cultivated or created a group of fellow runners, and we all shared a similar passion, and we went for runs, and it was all healthy and it was all positive, and
Yeah.
it worked out. But anyway, so sorry, I know we got a little sidetracked,
No,
but
it's great. It's great.
what um I guess I don't know if you want to ask any specific questions or just want to hear me talk about what I'm doing today.
Yeah, I would love to get a little insight into this season of your life, which is not only being a hardworking attorney, but a hardworking father. Being a parent is no walk in the park all the time. It's joyful, but it's demanding of our time. So what does it look like on a daily basis or a weekly basis? How are you finding time to get in moments where you can practice well-being or ground yourself in all that you do?
Sure. Well, I love being a dad. I love my baby boy. Um, I will say that, I mean, my wife is an incredible mother. She
Yeah.
is incredible at what she does. So I, she does a ton of the hard work in terms of taking care of our son, and I help, in the ways that I can. But um, she definitely makes it a lot easier for me. It's not I got to give her all the credit, but
Oh,
I will say in terms of wellness too, I'm very fortunate too. I mean, she is the love of my life, and uh, when you find your soulmate like that, it certainly makes the whole world around you well, right?
oh.
So
Jordan, we should have filmed, sorry, we should have recorded this in like April and given this to her as a Mother's Day gift.
oh yeah, sure. I she
I cut
knows
you
this.
off.
I remind her a lot. But so in terms of wellness and what I do, I mean, it's all more or less has been the same so far. I wouldn't say my life has been dramatically changed since the arrival of my son. I mean, um when I'm hearing these stories, I was preparing for a dramatic change. I was preparing for a situation where I would be sleep deprived and things like that. And I hope, I shouldn't even tell the world. I'm sleeping more or less okay. Um, sorry. But you know, I basically I've figured out something that just works for me in terms of wellness. And I also kind of funny, I laugh a little bit about wellness because I do think, being a lawyer in general is just the most stressful profession there is, at least for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And then kind of my world and kind of my undertaking, I think is up there in terms of specialties within the law of like what is stressful. So it's like, it's not like I'm stress free, all the
Yeah.
time. I deal with a ton of stress. I deal with a ton of pressure. But I guess I can give myself a little credit. I think I handle it pretty well. Um, and maybe some of the keys to that is, well, one is I truly love what I do. So
Mhm.
that makes working a lot easier.
And
Um,
that sort of emanates like you that radiates from you. I speak to a lot of attorneys, and that's not the case for a lot of attorneys. It's clearly something that you enjoy.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And also, again, this is a corny. this is corny too, but this basically, whether it's the present, but also literally my entire legal career. In college, I was a college dropout. I had some other ambitions and things going on in my life. And I suffered. I failed. Um, and my failures weren't through like trying and failing, but it was just failing by just inaction and not really following through with things. And it was
Mhm.
humbling for me because kind of my whole life growing up, I was a pretty successful person. And then to kind of fail for the first time was a very interesting experience. And then I remember finishing up college and then applying to law school, and my grades in college were horrible because I started off with really good grades and then I purposefully tanked, and my grades nosedived.
Purposely then?
Yeah, I was going through a phase. I didn't
Yeah.
want to be a part of college. I was actually trying to fail out. And
Wow.
I'm glad I never did fail out, but yeah, that's again, that might be another story, but
That's
um
part two of our time
yeah.
together.
I remember even applying to law school. I was what's called a splitter, if you remember what that term means, like someone who has a really high LSAT, but like top LSAT, but
Yeah,
bottom grades. So I'm like, so it's a little weird, what schools would take me and things like that.
right.
And I remember I'd write like, write a statement explaining why your grades were poor or something like that. And I forget exactly what I said, but I said something to the extent like, I know what it's like to fail without trying. And that is the worst feeling in the world. And I promise you that is never going to happen again. I'm going to be successful. And I can say this with 100% certainty, no matter what happens in my career or has happened in my career, from law school to the present, I can go to sleep knowing that I've put in my best. Like I have zero regrets with anything. And that just kind of that helps me deal with a lot of the pressures and fears and dread of, that you experience in, the day to day or some of these huge cases that I'm handling is that I
Yeah.
know that like I'm doing my best. I can't go back and say, "Oh, I didn't put in my best effort." It's like I'm doing my best. I can sleep knowing when it's all said and done, I gave it 100%. So that helps me a lot. Um,
That's a gift. There aren't a lot of people lose sleep at night because they could have done a dozen great things, but just the sort of nature of our minds can go back and find what we could have done better, what we should have done, what we didn't do, what we think we should do. And to be able to lift that weight, take that out of the equation and to really know that you're showing up fully for all of the moments in your life, not only showing up, but doing the best you can do. That's a gift to be able to end each day feeling that way and to be as passionate and to enjoy what you do enough that each day, each brand new day, it's like an amazing opportunity to be the best you can, which given the results that you've gotten, it shows. And what a 180 from what you're telling me, which I had no idea about I think it just makes you even more special to have really felt what it's like to fail, but then to take that, not give yourself a hard time, but to use that to really optimize what you can do for others, what you can do for yourself. So that's kind of coming across in what you shared.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I guess another thing that I try to live by is I try not to give myself too much work. Trust me, I'm plenty busy. I'm busy all the
Yeah.
time. If I didn't get a new case for a while, I'm still good, being plenty busy for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um, I'm not taking on more than I can chew. Like
Mm,
I'm not I don't want to put myself in a position where I feel like an avalanche, coming down me. So that's why I'm very selective about my cases.
yeah.
I like to think proactively months in advance of all my cases, kind of where all of those cases are, where they're moving and things like
Hmm.
that. So I'm not putting myself the worst pressure cooker type situation
Yeah.
where, you know, you might not be able to put your best effort in because you just have too much going on. So I always kind of have a quality over quantity mindset. And if a case comes in, even if it's a case that I think I can do well in or make some money in,
Hmm.
if I feel like all in all, is that something that I can truly give an A+ effort with, or get an A+ result with, or get the best result for my client? And will it affect what I'm currently working on and my current clients? And
Yeah.
if the answer is no, this might impact that, I'm not going to take the case because I just care too much about, and it makes me feel good to get good results, or know I'm giving my best effort, getting the best results. So I feel like being selective, not overdoing it with what I want to take on. Because I know some people, when they start a business, they might feel inclined, I'll take anything and
Yeah.
everything and just got to make it work and just push through it. And I don't have that mindset. Um,
You can't give your undivided attention at any given moment to a particular case. I think that's really skillful boundary drawing. Like you can create those boundaries, and to your point, it's not so much quantity as it is quality. And I think that's really important because the types of cases you're taking, you're not taking these rinky dink trip and fall cases. You have catastrophic cases that demand a lot of your time and your intelligence. So I think that that is not only beneficial to you and allows you to live this more well-balanced, less stressful life, but in turn, it's great for your clients because they're getting the very best they can get of Jordan. So, and that's a huge tool in terms of promoting wellness. And I know it's one I at least in my when I was working in the 20 years I handled litigation as a defense attorney, I really struggled, especially as a younger lawyer, drawing those lines when a senior partner said, "Can you do this?" Of course I can do this. If another partner, another attorney asked me to handle more, it just piled and piled to the point where my mind was spinning. And I don't know that I did. I always worked hard, but to be able to see the big picture, like you're saying, see the big picture, know the type of balance that you want in your life, and then to use that formula to pick and choose what to take on is really going to benefit you in the long run. Yeah.
and Also, for what it's worth, again, just small tidbits. I've feel like I've come into a good groove the last few years where, and I learned this kind of even in law school, where I'm not a fan of putting in like 20-hour days. And when I was a baby lawyer, there were times, just because I was new to doing something, it took a million times longer than expected. And I'd find myself at the office till 2 in the morning to get something done because I have a responsibility to get something important done. I can't
Yeah.
just, lose the case because I underestimated, I had to show grit to get things done.
Hmm.
But, I learned from that. And I also learned that, okay, that's great. You can put in a 20-hour day. I am not the person. There are some people who are built this way where they actually can be highly productive with very little sleep. I am not one of those people. So if I put in a 20-hour day, and I can put in 20-hour days for probably a pretty long period of time, but I got to tell you, I will crash at
Yeah.
some point. Or at some point, my work product will suffer. There will be a lack of consistency. It'll be like highs and lows. Like, yes, I can work for 20 hours, but I might not be working the next day if I don't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
So I kind of realized, and honestly, training for running, like training for marathons, kind of taught me this too. Like, you can't, most people, to train for a marathon, no, you shouldn't be running 20 miles every single day. You're going
Yeah.
to break your legs, or you're not going to be able to do the race when it comes. You have to consistently run and rest and run and rest, and realistic, goals. So I feel like I'm in a good groove where, I'm working all the time, and I'm not like, trust me, I'm not perfect. Granted, I love what I do, but I can rarely turn it off. So,
Yeah.
that's something I need to work on. But like, I'm always thinking about my cases. So on the one hand, I guess I'm working all of the time, because
The
even in my
mind's eye.
sleep, the mind's still working things
Yeah.
out. But I still try to stay. healthy by setting a certain time of the day where it's like, okay, put the work down. Because if
Yeah.
I do keep working till, 8 or 9 o'clock, my mind will race at night and I will
Yeah.
have trouble sleeping. So I try to stop at a certain time and relax for a few hours so
Hmm.
I'm able to get a good sleep. And I value sleep. If I don't get a good sleep, trust me, I'm trying to make up for it as soon as
Yeah.
possible. And I also do try, even though I'm always thinking about cases, I do try to at least have one day a week on the weekend where like I'm not really working at all. And I've even gotten good. I'm very proud of myself. I put my phone on do not disturb,
Ah,
which I
that's
never
huge.
would have done the first few years I started my firm.
Yeah.
And then I also maybe just like because if I feel like very confident in my cases, but I think if a random person were to look at my caseload and the complexity of my cases and see what's going on, they might, their head could explode. But what I do to just feel confident and feel relaxed about it is every single week I find a quiet time, usually on the weekend, where I see what's going on the following week in my schedule. I
Hmm.
map that out. And then also I go through all of my cases. What are just key things I can do to move those cases forward? And I have one big list on a legal pad, and I
Old
just
school.
systematically, yeah.
Old.
Well, I like writing things out just because I memorize it
Okay.
better.
Yeah.
Um, and then so I have this big picture for the week, and then every single morning, the first thing I do is I get a blank sheet of white paper and I look at my schedule. I look at the legal pad, and then I write the key tasks for the day.
Yeah.
And so I never lose sight of the big picture on a
Hmm.
weekly basis and a daily basis. And then I just kind of systematically just like check off. And so even when you're tired or you're going through something or the adrenaline's on, you're stressed, you just find time, look at my list. Okay, I'm checking these things off. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I gotta, push myself a little bit, show a little grit, being like, okay, well, I still got one or two things left, but I just gotta do it because kind of what I tell my associates, the practice of law is stressful, but how you navigate that stress, or it's hard work, and then kind of how you navigate that is onto you. There's
Yep.
like positive stress and negative stress. Negative stress is like being so overwhelmed that you decide you're so flustered you don't do any work at all, or you're not really accomplishing anything because you don't know what to do, and you're not doing concentrated efforts and getting things done, and so the work just continues to pile and pile up, and you kind of hide into a corner, and it just continues to fall on you where
It's like
you can kind
that fight or flight. You like freeze. You can, and it's like
right,
I'm not gonna fight. I'm just gonna flee or freeze. So yeah.
right. And then yeah, and then that's I consider that to be negative stress in my
Yeah.
mind. So then you kind of flip the script, and then positive stress, like, okay, I have a lot of work, but it's only going to grow if I don't attack it. So I'm
Right.
I'm putting in the hard work, I'm concentrating, I'm getting tasks done, and I'm just chipping away to make it into a manageable work product. And yeah, it's hard work and it's tough and it can be stressful, but at the end of the day, I know I'm in a better position than I was, when I started. So
I
that's
think it's
positive stress to me.
Yeah, and your approach, the way you're describing it, I call it like chunking down. So like we have this like overwhelming to-do list or to-do list, and then just by breaking it down and tackling one task at a time, before you know it, it's like check, 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 check. And also to your point, sustainability, knowing that rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And that I often talk about this when I'm trying to teach mindfulness to attorneys to help them to decrease stress. They say, I know I need to be less stressed out. I know I need to do something about how anxious I am, but I don't have the time. And I say, don't look at this as like another item on your to-do list. Look at this as something that's going to allow you to recharge. Those small moments of resting and reconnecting with ourselves, they replenish us. When we're just working 20-hour days, day after day, and we're not giving ourselves the time to go for a run or to just simply be, to step out of all that we do as attorneys, it wears us down. It takes the joy out of what we do, and in turn it affects the results that we can get for our clients. So I love how it might not be possible for everyone. I love that you're able to take a good chunk, if not a day, to disconnect from, again, I know you're not like letting deadlines fly. You're still very much, it's in your head, but to step away, to be more present with family, or to find joy in extracurricular activities. So I think that's so important, whether it's a day or just moments throughout our days. So I could go on asking you questions and questions and more questions. I know that you've been so great in gracing me with your time. I did want to ask you a few more questions if you're okay, time-wise.
Yeah, no, I'm free, and I'm so happy. And it's been tough for us to coordinate this because sometimes again, I feel like I sometimes don't even have time to do things like this. But thank goodness this week, I have time. So please ask
Yeah,
away.
I'm sensitive to the fact that you're not only juggling your heavy caseloads, but you are being present for your family. So just a quick question, do you practice any type of meditation? Does that weave its way into your life in any way?
So probably in the traditional sense, no, in terms of like I don't sit back and close my eyes
Mhm.
and do breathing techniques. But for what it's worth, kind of going back to running, it used to be solely running for the most part, but now I'm just going to say exercise in general.
Yeah,
That's kind of like my form of meditation. And I have
perfect.
not been into endurance activities as much these days, but when we first met, was when I was, training for an Ironman. And so we're talking about hours and
Oh,
hours and hours. And the Ironman itself is, I think 10 plus hours of nonstop exercise. But I will say, like, kind of going through that endeavor, whether it's just the calm of being in the water and stroke after stroke after stroke, there is some sort of like calming thing, and or even just running or biking for long periods of time, where I almost kind of have these feelings of nirvana, where just like everything kind of just fits into place, and things are just so clearly, or I don't think of anything, or maybe if there is something I'm wrestling with, my subconscious kind of like takes over, and then
mm-hmm.
when I'm done, like my answer is there. Um so I do try, on a daily basis to get a sweat in.
Yeah,
So, I still run. I don't run. We'll see. I might get back into it again. I'm not one of those people who does an Ironman and it's all they do for the rest of their lives.
right.
I'm kind of a bigger guy for a runner, and I always kind of embrace the pain that you get
Yeah,
on your legs by doing that constant exercise. And then when
yeah.
and I got married, and my wife, she's incredibly wellness oriented. She kind of said, "Hey, you don't have to be so hard on your body all the time." So I stopped running as much, and I started to feel like, wow, this is what it feels like when you're not in pain, or
Uh,
your legs don't feel weak from a huge workout before, and like
yeah,
it actually kind of feels nice not to be in pain all the time. So but still, I try, like today for instance, I was able to go out for a quick 3 mile run, and just to get the blood flowing, the
yeah,
breathing going, get a good sweat in. It's a great reset. And oftentimes if there is something that upsets me or is bothering me, a quick workout really can kind of like refresh, and then I'm thinking of what's the solution here, or maybe the solution comes to me on the run, or the perspective changed, it's a lot
yeah.
more positive. um so I always like to do that. And then also I'm a huge walker. That's why
Mm,
I think I have always wanted to live in the city, is just I love walking everywhere.
yep.
I hate being in the car. I love walking places, getting that
Sound
kind
like
of
me. I feel the same way.
exercise. And so yeah, so whether it's, again, it's easier for me because I do have my own firm, right? I kind of paid my dues, and I can do things that are more geared towards wellness, where it could just be like, uh, I'm working and working hard. I realize I need to take a quick break. I'm going to walk my dog for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Or also I try to coordinate, well, this now I guess we're stepping aside from meditation, but like I try to
No.
coordinate, like kind of like kill, uh, actually, I was gonna say kill two birds with one stone, but I don't want to kill any birds. So I won't use that expression. But like say you have to make phone calls, um, thank goodness we live in a world where you can make phone calls or Zoom calls anywhere on the planet if you have cell service and you have,
Yeah.
AirPods. And so if I have certain calls where I don't maybe need to take extensive notes, I can walk and talk at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm accomplishing my goals. I'm still working, but I'm also
Weaving
actively
in
taking care of
wellness.
myself and getting fresh air. Or today, for instance, I love having the opportunity to talk with you, and I'm fortunate that it's a beautiful day outside. I'm going to do this outside and talk to you while getting some fresh air at the same time.
I love what you're sharing because there's a large misconception that in order to meditate, we need to be in a quiet space and we need to sit in a certain posture, or we need to close our eyes. And ultimately, we do formal practice so that we can strengthen our innate ability to be aware in the present, so that we can show up more fully for the moments of our lives. But the ways in which you weave mindfulness informally into your life is are beautiful. The running, walking, being in the water. Ultimately, that's what we're sort of cultivating in the formal practice. But how great that you can weave presence and awareness and incline yourself in the direction of more relaxation through movement and through your using your senses to really drop into the here and now. So I love that you give that a voice. Some people think like, okay, I need to go into some little space and just sit motionless for hours on end. So I love that you give that acknowledgement. So one last question. I'm just curious because you have grown such an umpire. You're humble, no less, throughout it all, as much as you've accomplished and the amazing results that you've gotten in your work. Is there someone in your life, or was there someone in your life, whether personally or professionally, who has been a mentor in some way, or who you these I know I won't get into, I've been following your posts, but you speak about your values and the values that find their way into the firm that you've grown. But is there someone who has helped to instill these values that you so clearly exude into the universe?
Yes. It was never forced on me. It was mainly shown to me by leadership and example, and I think it just kind of rubbed off. But the more and more I reflect, I think I'm just trying to be like my dad. He passed away a couple years ago, but he was um an incredibly brilliant and virtuous person. And virtue, I think, is a word that you rarely hear in today's world. And he really was a virtuous human being. And he was incredibly humble and laid back and really cool guy. So I think maybe sometimes I'm just when I think about things, I don't know if I directly asked this question, but I think maybe my subconscious is what would your dad do, or what would your dad say about this, and I kind of act accordingly.
Oh, I'm sorry for your loss, but I know that he would be so proud of you just from what I see. So, uh, yeah, it sounds to me, looks to me like you're following in his footsteps. So, if people want to learn more about the work that you do, they want to connect with you, perhaps they have a case and they're looking for an attorney to help them, how's best for them to reach out to you?
Well, I guess I don't mind doing this. You can always reach me directly on my cell. Send me a
You
text
sure you want to put
message.
that out
Yeah,
there?
I guess let's make this experiment. Let's see
Oh,
what
okay.
happens. My cell is 215-317-6545. My email is Jordan at actionafterinjury.com. And my website is actionafterinjury.com. That is not the name of my firm. I just figured action after injuries a little bit easier to remember or spell than StrokovskyLLC.com. So, but yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, by all means.
Okay, just when you have people calling morning,
Not your
noon, and
fault.
night, don't
I
get
brought
mad
it
at
on
me.
myself. And hey, that'll press upon me to maybe get a work phone if that's the case. And honestly, this is the first year until recently I actually uh have a phone number for my law firm. For 5+ years, the phone number for my firm, because I didn't want to miss any call and I always wanted to be jumping on things immediately, was my cell.
Oh,
So
wow.
um so I don't mind giving my cell now, because before it was, if you Googled my business, you'd have my cell.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jordan, this has been a real joy and honor, and I think you, hands down, fall into the most humble guest I've ever had
Hmm.
on this podcast show. So I really thank you for your time. I know how busy you are. I know that you took a long time, like you really you prioritized this time to be on the episode, so I don't discount that in any way. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you have a great weekend. I hope that one of the 2 days coming up this weekend is a day to disconnect from all that you do, and I'm really excited to share this episode with others, so thank you again.
Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate you.
Likewise.